Welcome to Sports Talk in the Burgh.
Welcome back to Sports Talk in the Burgh. You're probably wondering where the hot Italian hoagie Michael Shuley is. And to be honest with you, if I don't hear from him before the end of the show, he'll be on the milk carton tomorrow. Consider this the throwback episode. As always, Tyler Gallo and John Hanna alongside me. Boys, let's get right into the action. Robert Morris men's basketball opened up the UPMC Event Center against Pitt. Pitt went on to win 71-57. How do you guys feel about the atmosphere of the game, and how do you think Robert Morris played?
Well, to answer that first question, the atmosphere was absolutely electric. I know you were on the floor that you almost got ran over by somebody.
I did. I caught one of the Colonials on a layup.
But yeah, I was watching it on ESPNU. I could still hear the crowd through that. So that is probably the best atmosphere that event center is going to have for quite some time this season.
I'll have to say it was one of the loudest venues I've been a part of. Robert Morris with the NEC and with the event center now, they do a great job, making it sound louder than more people than there actually are in there.
Yeah. I never went to a game at Sewell.
40,000.
You went to a game at Sewell. How does?
It's very similar. Sewell also was a loud building as well.
But that second question as well, how they played, they hung with them in the first half. I mean, you can't complain about that. Tied at 27 to Pitt, who's an ACC school. That's good. But
well, yeah, that is really good. I just think they played well in the first half, and they really fed off of how bad the Pitt was playing in the first half, but they really fizzled out in that second half. May have been more focused on Juju Smith-Schuster, who was in attendance that night.
Yeah, that first half, really, Robert Morris got lucky. I'm looking at my notes right now.
Pitt did not shoot
in
well
that first half.
half.
Pitt just 1 for 5 from behind the line. Trey McGowan, who ended up finishing with 25 points, he had 10 points, 4 rebounds, 2 steals in that first half, which really was Pitt's whole offense.
Trey McGowan's 25 points. The 2 leading scorers for RMU, Josh Williams had 12, Jalen Hawkins had 11. So if your 2 scorers can't account for 1 guy from Pitt, that's going to be difficult to battle with for the entire game.
Yeah, and then that second half, Pitt got hot, shooting about 57% from behind the arc. And Josh Williams, known for his range, just 1 for 4 down the stretch. Really just a tough game overall for these Colonials.
Yeah, and, it's unfortunate they lost. Great way to open the UPMC Event Center against a team like Pitt, but waste of fireworks, I mean.
Yeah, the crowd obviously was great. There was a lot of people there, and they showed that they could support this team if a big game like this does happen. So that's really exciting to see.
Speaking of fireworks, last week RMU stunned the Duquesne Dukes in football by winning 41-21. What makes this win so significant, and who deserves the most credit? Is it Bernard Clark, or is it another person within this team, whether it's a coach or an administrator?
I think what makes this win so significant is they silenced the doubters. I mean, people were going into this game thinking, "Oh, you guys aren't going to beat Duquesne," and then they go in and
silence the doubters. But you know what else they did? They beat a cross-city rival.
Yeah.
They beat Duquesne, which theoretically makes them, obviously the best NEC team currently in Pittsburgh, which isn't saying much.
They beat a pretty tough opponent in Duquesne, and that's a lot of momentum building for a very even tougher opponent in Central Connecticut State.
Yeah, but going on to that second question, Bernard Clark getting most of the credit, I think it's deserved. He currently has 5 NEC wins, which is more than John Banaszak had in all his years here at RMU. He had 4. So in only 2 years, Coach Clark, only 1 season really, because they had 0 last year.
And hey,
it's not like
he's transformed that locker room into more of a winning culture, never say die atmosphere.
And you can't really say any of the players. Sure, you lost, Jimmy Walker, but George Martin, Caleb Lewis has played well. And then another player who actually played under Coach Clark, Mason Gray, a transfer from Albany, he was lights out in that Duquesne
Dude's
game.
a ball hawk. 2 pick sixes for that team. You talk about culture. Last year, Bernard Clark's big thing was culture shock. We're going to bring a culture shock mentality to this Colonials team. Well, and it didn't happen last year, but this year, big-time culture shock for these Colonials.
And a couple freshmen as well being really big impacts. Garrett Hauser, he had that game-winning, 70-something yard touchdown catch a couple weeks ago.
Yep.
He had another one last week against Duquesne. Garrett Hauser's been one of the really big freshmen on this team, but it's really been a lot of these sophomores, like guys like, George Martin, that have really helped kickstart this team.
Well, and hey, speaking of also silencing the doubters, no one was giving them any credit coming in this game. And then they go out there and beat Duquesne by 20. That is something that's a huge sign, especially going into a game against Central Connecticut State, who has only lost 1 game this season, I believe, and they've just really, they've silenced all the doubters. That's all I can say.
Speaking of Robert Morris playing for the championship, for the NEC Championship for the first time since 2010, the battle for NEC supremacy is set to take place this Saturday in New Britain, Connecticut, when Robert Morris and Central Connecticut kick off. Does Robert Morris leave the hardware city with an NEC crown? And what does this mean for what does this game by itself mean for this program?
Well, first off, is New Britain really called the hardware?
It is. I looked it up today. The hardware city.
Okay,
Here's
well,
this. I think it's going to be tough.
Yeah, it's going to be
Devils
tough.
are really, really good. They've all but laid waste to the entire
I
conference.
think RMU, off that Duquesne win, can eke one out. I think they win this one barely, but I think they can upset the Blue Devils.
Okay, and if they do, I will gladly be wrong about my prediction, but I think Central Connecticut State is just too good for them to handle. This is the one game where I'm just like, not sure if I mean, the Dukes were one thing. They were struggling coming into that game, but Central Connecticut State laid waste to the entire conference. I think Central Connecticut State takes this one 41-21.
As we see it here, John, you picking Robert Morris
Yes,
21-20.
I say CCU misses an extra point.
Oh,
it's one of those things.
An extra point.
Yeah, we've seen it happen to Robert Morris. That Sacred Heart game.
That is.
St. Francis, was a couple missed field goals by their team, by St. Francis. I think that RMU gets lucky again, manages to squeak one out here, 21-20.
I like CCSU here, taking a late fourth quarter lead, maybe off a couple of RMU unfortunate turnovers,
Yeah, maybe
and taking a 34-20
the
loss.
early season RMU route, coming back from being down. But yeah, I just think Central Connecticut State is just too much of a powerhouse for them to lose this game to RMU. But if RMU does win,
it's huge for this program.
Huge.
Yeah.
First NEC conference win, if they don't lay an egg the last week of the season, but they have tiebreakers both weeks. But
and it's going to open some eyes for the entire program itself.
It brings up recruiting. If you can say you win the NEC, that's great recruiting.
Yeah, I mentioned to my broadcast partner Nick Hedrick about this recruiting. I remember looking down to the fourth quarter and seeing a lot of these recruits leaving games in the third quarter. But for that game against Duquesne, everybody was there. Everybody was excited. Everybody was going. Let's talk about excitement about Robert Morris sports. Robert Morris volleyball clinched the regular season NEC Championship for this past weekend. Head coach Dale Starr won his 300th collegiate game. Is this team ready for the conference playoffs?
I think they are. It's really not a good idea to bet against them at this point. I mean, they've played.
They went to one set against CCSU. They took them to 5 sets, so it's not. That was their first 5-set game of the entire season.
Well, hey, and they've
at least NEC season.
absolutely steamrolled the NEC this season. And with the season Emma Granger's having, there's always that one bad performance can make you go home mentality, but they haven't really had one bad performance all season.
They have 2 games left in the regular season away from home, but against a 3-25 FDU and a 10-16 LIU. And they're hosting the playoffs here at the UPMC Event Center, where they're currently 12-0. So I don't see that 0 being removed from the loss column anytime soon.
Yeah, I've only been to one volleyball match this year, and the analogy I have in my notes here is a power pitcher. It looked like when they played St. Francis, they were dominating that game.
They were.
They've dominated the whole season, and I mean, it's just basically they're taking advantage of a lot of home cooking, 12-0, like you said. Mm-hmm. That new facility is really nice for volleyball.
Yeah, and the entire school, I think, is benefiting, but well, I mean, it's obvious to see, but I think that this team, can really go far. I mean, NEC playoffs.
They probably are going to do exactly what they did to the NEC during the regular season and just go right through it.
You mean Emma Granger's going to win more awards?
Emma Granger, hey, she wins awards after awards, and you know what? She's putting up, as I've said before plenty of times,
video game numbers.
Yes.
Yeah, it's just insane the year she's been having, and it's insane what this team has been having. But coming up after the break, we're going to still be talking about Robert Morris sports. Hockey's coming up, and the women's soccer team has made a personnel decision. We'll discuss that after the break here on Sports Talk in the Burgh.
I was physically at school, but my mind wasn't at school. I had problems at home. That's when I met Narnese. She started helping me a little bit, like, Nia, I don't know what you're doing, but your future is more important. She's my strength. It takes a village to help somebody get their diploma. It changes your whole life.
Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org. See on page 4 that the projections need to be blood. Next Thursday?
Seriously? Thursday? Can't do that.
This is really inconvenient.
I have yoga that day. I have no time for this. So.
I can't do Thursday, but I can do Friday.
Disasters don't plan ahead. You can. Talk to your loved ones about how you're going to be ready in an emergency. Don't wait. Communicate.
What to expect when you're expecting.
Like here.
A teenager.
Today, I'm going to show you how to teen-proof your home. First step, hide the car keys. Preferably somewhere they would never look. Challenges will come up. Be ready for them. Hi, honey.
Ready for the... Mom, you don't use mannequins in the mannequin challenge.
You don't have to know it all to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same.
Home fire drills give your family a plan of action. In a home fire, you may have less than 2 minutes to get out. So when you drill, show everyone 2 ways out of the house, pick a safe meeting spot, and get there in under 2 minutes. Then practice home fire drills at least twice a year. You can even make them fun. So everyone knows the sound and exactly what to do when they hear a smoke alarm. Go to ready.gov/firedrill and learn how to prepare your family for home fires.
Now to the ice, both men's and women's hockey teams are heading into the heart of their conference seasons. Men's hockey still winning games despite not having a consistent goal scorer, and women's hockey getting scoring help from everybody on the ice. Based on what you guys seen thus far in the season, how is it going? How is this? Who's going to have the better season on the ice for the Colonials?
I think it honestly has to be women's hockey.
It depends on what you define as a better season. Wins and losses, I think the men's team technically, but conference success, it's women's. Because this CHA, aside from Mercyhurst, there's really nobody in this conference that can deal the blows that a J.C. Gebhard or even a Lexi Templeman that the women's team has.
And you mentioned how they haven't getting a consistent goal scorer on the men's hockey team. They finally, this weekend, got a point-per-game player, Nick Perkusic, up to 3 goals and 6 assists in only 6 games played. 9 points. So, I mean, they need to build off of him a little bit.
And this women's team, that's my pick as well, who's going to have the better season. They both have solid goaltending, sure. Justin Kapelmaster is among the top goaltenders in the NCAA. And then for women's team, you have that 1-2 punch of Ariel DeSmet and Reagan Kirk. But this women's hockey team has the experience against the tough teams. Number 1, Minnesota. Number 3, Cornell. Number 5, 3 Cornell. Number 5, Clarkson. These are tough teams, and it only gets tougher. They're going to play number 2 in the nation, Wisconsin, later this year.
And hey, they've really given them the short end of the stick when it comes to the schedule per se, but they've played well against these really good teams. So you can't knock them at all for that.
Yeah, I agree with John here. I have to go with women's hockey. I think, overall record, the record right now doesn't show a lot because they are a sub-500 team, but you mentioned they played 3 really, really good hockey teams.
And they're still getting ranked votes, which is insane considering the teams they had to play.
And I do believe they will get that conference title. I don't think Mercyhurst, can handle an RMU team like this, especially moving forward, as they're only going to get better as the season goes on. And men's hockey this year, they have a lot of learning to do. There's a lot of things they have to change about their game.
Yeah, a lot of lost players as well. Michael Loria and Alex Tonge, Eric Israel on the back end. These are players you can't replace overnight. There's a reason these guys have played here for 4 years.
Hey, you don't replace it with one person. You replace it with multiple players. And that's sort of what they've been doing thus far this season. Justin Adamo is improving. Nick Perkusic finally back into the scoring column. It's just a matter of what are they going to do for the rest of the season? How are they going to improve? That's really the biggest thing for me for this men's hockey team.
And let's move to the pitch now. This past couple of weeks, RMU cornerstone John Kowalski, after his 19th season at the helm of women's soccer here at Robert Morris, was fired. His contract was not renewed. He let go from the program. How was this a long overdue process?
Absolutely. He only has really one thing on his record. That was a 2015 NEC tournament appearance where he didn't do much. They lost in the first round. He has only 112 wins, 224 losses, 19 draws. He had a great talent in Jane Schleicher, who graduated last year. And he has that one NEC tournament to his title. That's really the only thing he has to his name with the Colonials.
After this not very good performance this season, I think it was just the writing was in the wall for this to happen. And it's just wasn't the guy to really direct them into right the ship per se going forward. So that's really why this move happened.
Yeah, and I think, looking top to bottom here, John Kowalski's a big-name guy, good for the donors, but Chris King was he wants the money, but he wants to win even more. But, let's keep moving on. Onto the gridiron now. After knocking off the Los Angeles Rams 17-12 in a pivotal game tomorrow night against the Cleveland Browns, the Pittsburgh Steelers find themselves back in the mix for a playoff spot. What are your guys' takeaways from the game against the Rams, and can this team make the playoffs despite their offensive struggles?
Well, I think for the Rams game, they really showed that they could battle with these. I mean, the Rams are having a bit of a down year, but they're still a top-tier team in this league. And can they sneak into the playoffs? I think yes. As of right now, New York Times gives them a 60% chance. Despite those offensive struggles, they have an easy schedule remaining the rest of the year. Third weakest after Cleveland and Oakland.
Well, hey, and as I said before, this team is wild card or bust right now. The Ravens are the bulldog at the top of the division that are not really gonna. I don't think you're gonna upseat them for the top.
No.
The top.
In the wild card as well, Brissett's out missing with the Colts, who are a big one. Buffalo's been having a bit of struggle, unfortunately, but they've been struggling over the past couple weeks, losing to the Browns.
I will say this though. I don't personally think the Steelers are the team that's going to get that second wild card. I believe Buffalo will have the first wild card spot, John, and that's something you can write home to about.
Talking proud.
I believe the Oakland Raiders will sneak in.
Oakland.
Looking at the remaining schedule for these two teams, or for these three teams, I'm going to include the Colts in here. The Colts are being led by Brian Hoyer and did lose to the Dolphins.
Yes, but
they have some tough games, and the Texans and the Saints coming up the rest of the season. And the Steelers, they have the Bills and the Ravens. That Bills game could be a game for a potential wild card spot.
I was messing around with the playoff picture. That game can really debate both teams' playoff chances here.
Well, over to the ice now. The Penguins have been playing through injuries for what seems to be the majority of this season. Now Sidney Crosby is expected to miss time. They have to rely on their role players, including Alex Galchenyuk. Galchenyuk was part of the Phil Kessel trade. Is he fitting in well in Pittsburgh, and who won that Kessel trade?
I think you can't really gauge the Phil Kessel trade yet until a season has concluded. And I just think that Galchenyuk, yes, he has fit in nicely and has been.
Really? He has 3 points this season. I mean, 3 points, no goals.
He hasn't gotten hurt.
That's the one.
He hasn't gotten hurt. Congratulations to him. That's not, everyone on the team, it seems, has gotten hurt except for Galchenyuk. Sure, you can't really say, is he going to fit in if he has revolving line mates, but I think even though Arizona got Kessel, who has 10 points so far, Pittsburgh still won this trade because they got a really talented defensive prospect in Pierre-Olivier Joseph, who currently has only 1 point, 1 assist in Wilkes-Barre, but he's talented. He's going to be a force on that blue line to go through the future.
Yeah, I just think it's still hard to gauge as the season's not over yet, and Kessel has performed. Yes,
season's not over, but
he's been relied upon in Arizona.
Galchenyuk hasn't done much yet.
Yeah, I'm not a very big fan of hockey, and admittingly I'm not. But what I've watched.
Yeah, you don't tell people that you're not a fan of hockey. Come on.
Well, from what I've watched, Galchenyuk hasn't really.
He hasn't gelled.
Hasn't gelled with me. I had to look up how to say his name because I haven't heard that often.
Well, and
so
as
I had
you
to look
before, the revolving door of line mates cannot help at all.
No, it can't help, but the fact that he only has 3 assists in any sort of situation, you were missing your second line center, Malkin. You think Galchenyuk, he's played center before. He can easily go in and fill that, but he didn't. He only 3 points in 9 games. That is not a good scoring click.
Let's talk about not a good record. Clint Hurdle recently came out and said he is not interested in managing or coaching baseball anymore. Was his career a success, and did those rough years in Pittsburgh tarnish his reputation?
Well, I think you have to view his career as a success, honestly. Not only in Pittsburgh, but when he was in Colorado as well. He led a team that went 76 and 86 in 2006 to the 2007 World Series, their first franchise history, and they were employing players like Yorvit Torrealba and Garrett Atkins, who you probably have never heard of. But I think, and he also led the Pirates to 3 straight playoff appearances, their first since 1992.
I think, like he alluded to, those past couple years have slightly tarnished his reputation. It's not like he had
recency bias.
It's not like he had too much to work with. But despite those those past couple years being complete downers, he still had a winning record in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, 735 and 720 in Pittsburgh.
Barely winning.
Barely
but
winning.
Still a winning record in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, not a bad tenure. I mean, and especially when he did have success in the past with the Rockies, and he came over.
But like I said, you can't leave just the good stuff. You have to remember the bad with it. And I know it's not exactly his fault that he didn't have the best players. That's ownership not paying people. But I just think that will he look back on with success? Yes. But will there be a little asterisk when people bring up his name? I think yes, because of that recency bias.
I'm really just looking at his overall career record here. 534 wins to 625 losses. You know, only 5 seasons with 80 plus wins. This guy, you alluded to the pennant he had with the Rockies, and that's a great thing. But I just don't look at Clint Hurdle as a winning manager and somebody that will be able to come onto a team and lead him into the World Series.
Well, hey, and with the Rockies, his ace was Jeff Francis. So you really can't go off of that as saying, well, those Rockies, those late 2000s, early 2000s teams were terrible. And I just think that, yes, the recency bias is the biggest thing. So, yeah, that's pretty much all we got for Clint Hurdle there.
Well, staying on the diamond and in the camera, Mike Friars admitted that the Astros stole signs in 2017. I personally have defended the Astros about sign stealing on this particular show. But, fellas, does this new information tarnish the Astros World Series win?
I'm going to say yes, because even though sign stealing isn't illegal, the way they did it was they used cameras in the dugout. Sure, you can sign steal, but you can't use cameras, which is what they did.
Well, yeah, and if you look at, there was a great Twitter account at John Boy Media. He showed that, and he actually brought up the audio a little bit. There was a banging on like a trash can or something in the dugout.
Yeah, there was examples of it, but the fact that it's just the cameras that were illegal. If they just had, somebody at second base saying, oh yeah, he's throwing a curveball, he's throwing whatever, then
I really hope it's not that blatant.
Well,
but he's throwing a curveball.
No, but you know what I mean. It's not illegal if you do that. But since they use those cameras in center field, that is the illegal part.
Well, I will say
rule.
this right now. In a sense, it does tarnish the World Series a little bit, but teams always steal signs. That's never going to change.
It's part of baseball. Let's be honest.
If they find evidence that it happened in the 2017 World Series, there needs to be more action. Maybe take away some draft picks, take away international money. What you got to do is you've got to penalize this. They can't get off scot-free.
It gives it a precedent for the league. I think the league is going to have to respond with some sort of action, some sort of penalty, or it's just going to continue to happen. And who's to say it's not going to happen even more as you go forward?
I mean,
people have been stealing signs since as long as baseball's been around for 100 plus years.
I read somewhere
it's
that
going to continue to happen.
The first sign stealing was in the 50s. So it's been prevalent in baseball. It's been prevalent all the time. But it's just the fact that they use the video cameras that's the real deal breaker in this whole debacle.
Yeah, they've got to be penalized more. That's the bottom line there. They've just got to be penalized for this happening.
Coming up after the break, we will have our final takes. Is this the first week, boys? We all have a final take about Robert Morris or the Moon Township area? I think so. Also, we will have a news segment. Stay tuned with us here on Sports Talk in the Burgh.
Hey, Dad. I need your help asking Jessica to prom.
Of course. Love is like the ocean. You have to tread the
waters.
waters.
Dad. That's not the kind of help I needed. Hey, Jessica. Will you go to prom with me?
Yes.
You don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care can't wait to share their first with you.
Let me tell you about the toughest guy on earth. He has the crazy strength to lift the man that raised him up without even flinching. This guy, this warrior, will always be by his father's side, even if his dad will hardly remember. If this guy isn't the toughest guy on the planet, then I don't know who is. Caregiving is tougher than tough. Find the care guides you need at aarp.org/caregiving.
What do you think you're doing, Kevin?
Was just gonna drive home.
There are several warning signs present that you shouldn't be driving.
Like hearing voices?
Like your text-to-emoji ratio?
Oh man, the selfies.
Selfies, nailed it.
We all have warning signs that let us know that we're probably not okay to drive. Mine is pretending to be your subconscious.
Craig, come on man, let's split a ride home.
Hey Bobo, do trees tell each other stories?
I'm sorry. I'm afraid I don't know that.
Hey, why don't we go find out?
Listen.
Can birds draw pictures?
I don't have an answer for that.
Dad, do stars visit their friends?
Look!
Welcome back to Sports Talk in the Burgh. Tyler Gallo, how about we hear your final take this evening?
Thanks, Luke. And after hosting a big crowd at Bob Dylan and selling out last night's basketball game against the University of Pittsburgh, and future big names coming to the facility such as Sarah Bareilles, one thing is clear. Moon Township and the Event Center are not adequately prepared to host big events at the arena. First off, traffic on University Boulevard last night was ridiculous. It took the shuttle 20 minutes to get to the stop from Yorktown. And there's obviously not a lot of staff on hand to direct traffic, as many patrons were not sure where to park. And with both Event Center lots filling up, people were going to Moon Plaza and other parking lots nearby. Look, bottom line is, for future larger scale events such as these, there needs to be more staff controlling both where to park and the flow of traffic. Maybe having more information about where to park would help greatly.
Well, mine is about the Event Center as well. Even though the Colonials lost, this battle of the Pittsburgh area teams should continue in the coming years. You can add, sure, a Duquesne or another semi-area team like a Penn State, Youngstown State, West Virginia, Marshall, or even just a random invite and turn it into a local tournament. You know, not only will the Colonials have a chance to take down a bigger school like those Pitt, it'll give them a higher footing in the Pittsburgh area like we saw them beat Duquesne, rather than get stomped like they did earlier this year by Notre Dame. And why not give them a chance against Pitt? Hey, they were tied at halftime against a team like the Panthers. The UPMC's Event Center last night was absolutely rocking. It likely won't be like that during the rest of the NEC regular season, which we know how much of a lull that is. They don't have to be all here. Games can be at Peterson Event Center, or AJ Palumbo Center for all I care. It'll be not only great for RMU athletics, but also for the entire Pittsburgh basketball culture.
Now that it's winter and cold is coming, people at Robert Morris need to pay attention to women's sports in this campus. I realized that earlier in the show I'd mainly only been to one volleyball match all season, but nonetheless, Robert Morris has some of the best women's sports programs in the nation. Women's hockey was nationally ranked just a few weeks ago, and sure, their record currently reflects a team that is below 500, but they arguably are one of the hardest schedules early in the season. The Colonials played 6 games against nationally ranked teams, and you'd be remiss if you didn't think that the game against number 2 Wisconsin will be a great game come January. And tonight, women's basketball opens their inaugural season at the UPMC Event Center. And the reigning NEC champions, undoubtedly the favorites to repeat, as they also have NECA Azebo, who is the favorite to win the NEC Player of the Year. And the team will dominate every game in every quarter they are in. John, let's hear a rebuttal for the final takes you just heard.
Well, Tyler, first off, that University Boulevard, they've had months to plan this. Both Moon Township and the university have made their beds. Now they have to sleep in it. Sure, it might disrupt people who come to Yorktown or come from Yorktown or commute. But they had months and months. They had the entire summer to work on a new way to get parking in, and they didn't. So this university and this township in general has built their bed, and they need to sleep in it. And for Luke, I completely agree. These are some of the best teams on campus. They need to be supported. I was at volleyball. There was nobody there. And that was the game where they won the championship themselves. But, Tyler, what do you have to say now?
John, while I like your idea of a tournament, I don't think anybody is getting up to pay to watch these teams slaughter RMU. I mean, yeah, that game was great last night, and it was great for the culture and everything, but I don't think people want to see West Virginia, who is one of the best teams, used to be one of the best teams. I'm not sure if they are now, but I don't think they want to get up to see them get slaughtered in these games. While, yes, a tournament would be great with maybe the lesser scale Pittsburgh teams, I don't think West Virginia. And then Luke Yost, I mean, just the women's hockey sports, or women's hockey, women's volleyball, all these sports are just great sports on campus. You know, volleyball, like you said, the best team on campus right now, and nobody goes to their games. So, Yost, here you go.
Well, Tyler, you didn't get much of a rebuttal, but I do agree with you. I do agree with John with what you said about making their beds and laying it. But for right now, that's all we have for you on this last semester of Sports Talk in the Burgh. We will see you next semester. Stay with us on RMU-TV. Thank you.